Hi everyone. So it's been a while since I posted anything on this channel, but I came across a Reddit post which I thought was quite curious and definitely would be really good to open some conversations. And is, as the title suggests, something related to sex drive and testosterone or steroid use. Of course, it's first shared as a prank. There's this guy asking on Reddit, which is like a blog on the steroid subreddit, and he asks why Tren, which is a steroid he's taken, is turning him homosexual, which is really funny because people don't turn homosexual, even though there's still a lot of ignorance around the subject. The post goes on, and the guy says it's bringing out his weird fetishes and he's craving giving oral sex to a male 24/7, even though he's only saying he wants to do that to trannies, meaning trans women, and he's even considering being the bottom on a sexual relationship with a trans woman. And he's actually on Tinder trying to find somebody to accomplish his fantasies now. So he's asking why are the steroids turning him gay? So the first point is the whole turning gay myth. We're a very we're a very basic species, but we work in a very easy way to understand. Whenever something's difficult, we reject it. So when you have talk about sexual orientation, we usually have straight or gay. When we make it more complex and we start talking about bisexuals, people start rejecting it automatically, stating stuff like there's no such thing as bisexuality, you are actually gay but you're in a process, or bisexual people are terrible because they are promiscuous, or stuff like that. Whenever our binary way of thinking goes a bit more complicated with adding other subjects like bisexual people in this point, we tend to reject it. But it's actually like that. There's this Kinsey scale, which is a theory that I actually think is true. It says it's not like black or white when coming to sexual orientation, but it's actually more of like a spectrum. So if you can see, you have on one side 100% heterosexual and 100% gay on the other side, and it's really hard for somebody to be born into one of those two specific 100% borders of the spectrum. We're usually born in the middle. It's just because of societal kind of pressure that we tend to, if let's say you have 90% heterosexuality, 10% homosexuality, you are not going to act up on that 10%, or you're probably going to eliminate it absolutely because society kind of punishes that. So most people think they are either black or white when we are probably just moving around on that spectrum. That said, even though the Kinsey theory states that you are born at one point, another important thing to consider is to understand that sexual orientation is not actually something that's quite solid. It may vary a lot. You may feel like you are bisexual and you're sometimes more attracted to men than women, and then it might change. Also, when we talk about sexual roles between men, there's usually a bottom, a top, and there's versatile as well. And most people don't actually have like a specific kind of role, and it tends to change through life because of several different reasons. And the same thing happens with sexual orientation. I'm not meaning you can be gay and then go straight and then go back, but slight changes are actually quite common. So if you take into consideration that we're born in a spectrum, and we have like, if you're not bisexual, you're not probably going to be like on the edges, but moving around the other sides. So there's a chance that through life that may change. If you are 99% gay and 1% straight, but all of a sudden it may start changing, and you can like spend like a few months feeling like attracted to women, and then you go back to your point because it's flexible, because that's the way we work. And that's something most people don't understand. But it's not a rigid. It's not Sexual orientation is not rigid. That said, and going back to the steroid point, which is another thing that's quite interesting, steroids are usually anabolics, which are hormones, uh, male hormones. Testosterone is probably the most known of them. And so people who take steroids for the gym are usually going to start feeling a raise in testosterone, and that manifests itself on a higher sex drive, which I think is a very cool side effect of any kind of drug. So, what's the problem with that? The problem with that, I don't think it's a real issue actually. When you have a higher sex drive, in any case, what starts happening is that you may be willing to explore more stuff that attracts you that you weren't able to explore before. The way it works in our brains is that we all have a lot of different subjects and issues. I always picture it like a lot of tiny balloons sharing the same space. Food, hygiene, social stuff, or sexual activity, all of those shared in the same space. The problem with what usually happens is they share the space in harmony, but sometimes if you haven't eaten anything, the hunger balloon is going to start growing and growing and taking up more space until you reach a point where you say, "Oh my God, all I can think about is eating now, and I have to go and get food." And the same thing happens with the sex drive. When you start getting hornier and hornier, the balloon starts taking up more and more space. So what happens is that we stop prioritizing stuff that we might have prioritized before when the balloon is too big. Things like safety or social stigma and stuff like that. The stigma that surrounds us as sexual beings is very strong, and it actually tends to stop us or prevent us from enjoying our sexuality in a much more open way, or in the way we would like to, because we believe we're going to be judged. So when this sex drive balloon is taking so much space in our brain, we kind of tend to lower the social stigma part and start worrying less about it. So we may be more open to exploring other things that maybe we were ashamed of exploring before, that we were afraid of exploring before. Of course, that might be dangerous. And for instance, people who are usually using condoms during sex when they are too much horny, when they are too horny, it's probably because the safety part in their brains is diminished in comparison to sex drive, which is really, really high. So that's why we tend to do stupid things that we weren't actually supposed to do, like having unprotected sex or having sex with somebody we actually don't want. But it's very common. The thing is, we should understand how our sex drive works so that we can behave according to it and not be ashamed of it in any way. Of course, when you're taking steroids, that's an external agent that's going to affect your sex drive and is going to drive you horny for a very long time. All the time you do the cycle, which might be a month, 2 months, 3 months, or stuff like that. So it's a very long time to be having this hormonal revolution going on in your body and having a very crazy sex drive. So what could have happened with this guy particularly? Why is Trent making him gay? Is his question. Why are steroids making him have homosexual wishes? First off, is if he's feeling the need to have sex with a trans woman, he's straight because trans women are women. So the fact that he wants to play around with anal stimulation doesn't make him automatically gay. But let's play or pretend he's not actually attracted to trans women, but he's attracted to men. And he's only discovered that after steroid use. It doesn't mean the steroids have in any way influenced his sexual orientation. It's that probably this guy is starting to discover or being more open to explore a new side of his sexual orientation, noticing that he's probably more tended to bisexuality than he thought. Or maybe he thought he was 100% straight and he actually wasn't, and he just starts coming in concordance with his own sexual orientation. And all that is actually able to happen because the sex drive is so high that it starts diminishing other bubbles in our head, like it could be social stigma, homophobia, interiorized homophobia, especially transphobia, and stuff like that. So when those are diminished in comparison to sex drive, it's very easy to start exploring other things. Like, for instance, trying to start having anal sex with other people, being it male or female. But do steroids make him gay? No, actually not. He's probably, in my opinion, based on the very little information that I have, there's a guy that described himself as straight, and now he's going to start enjoying anal stimulation. So does that make him gay? No, not at all. If he still wants to date trans women. So does that make him gay? No, it doesn't make him straight. So I don't think any drug has a possibility of changing someone's sexual orientation, even though it's hormonal or stuff like that. I think it's all depending on how much we know ourselves and how much a higher sex drive is probably going to make us be more open to exploring other stuff. And a lot of people in comments were saying that this was because of porn addiction, because porn desensitized people and they start looking for weirder porn. And I think that's utter bullshit because there's no such thing as weird porn. I mean, or there's no such thing as porn addiction at all. So there's a lot of myth surrounding it. The sensitivity kind of thing that happens with porn, that's actually not something that happens. Our brains are very complex. So whenever they start talking about serotonin or dopamine kind of supplement or overdose because of porn, that's not going to create a resistance. What usually happens is what I just stated, right? When you feel hornier, you're probably going to be more open to exploring more stuff. Porn consumption is only a symptom, but definitely not the cause. The cause is that this guy probably wasn't aware that he liked other stuff, or that he was open to explore other stuff. And in case he starts liking men, it's not like the drugs specifically made him or open to fall in love or feel sexually attracted to men. Is that it was always there, only that it was really stuck underneath, layered. And I thought that was a really interesting subject because it touches a lot of different stuff, like the possibility of changing one's sexual orientation, or or how our hormones could influence that when it actually doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. Steroids do not make you gay. Steroids do not make you straight at all. We should learn more about ourselves, be more open to explore ourselves, and learn about sexual orientation. The Kinsey scale, which has been updated since forever because it's really old. There are different versions, and I think it's okay for everybody to check it out, see how they feel about it, and start understanding more how we work as and how we're born and how our biology makes us as human beings. So I hope you found this interesting, and we'll see each other in another video. I hope not so far.